Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
This has been brought to you by Megger, a company that has been serving the electrical test and measurement industry for over 100 years.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today we have 4 guests on our show, starting with Gretchen Smith. She's from Amherst, Nova Scotia, Canada, and she's hosted a Caravan Conversation Club in her home since 2017. She works as a lifestyle counselor at an adult residential center and teaches the practice of Reiki. Now, I want to also welcome Sandra Zwirlein from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and she has been hosting a Caravan Conversation Club there since 2017 as well. Sandra started working with Daniel Goodenough in 1998 and began the trainings of the Way of the Heart in 2000. Now, let's go down the line again. So now I have Daya, and Daya Harris lives in Vancouver, BC, and hosts a conversational club there. She has a degree in education and works as a private tutor, an actor, personal coach, and a counselor. And then last but not least, we have Daniel Goodenough. Now, Daniel is a very special person who's been involved in the Caravan Conversation, and he's written a book, and he's got a lot to talk about. So I want to welcome to my show Gretchen Smith, Sandra Zwirlein, Daya Harris, and Daniel Goodenough. And I want to say it's great to have you on the show today. So let's begin with Gretchen. So, Gretchen, you are one of the people who's involved in the Caravan Conversation Club. Tell us a little bit about what that is and how you got started.
Yes, thank you, Susan. I'm glad to be here, and it's been an exciting journey this past year to witness the growth of the Caravan Club and to see how it would unfold. It got started, Daniel released his book, and was very excited to share after having done, worked with some of the life mission questions that Daniel's always encouraging us and offering us, to then work with those questions with other people and to see what gifts it would help unfold for them. And so the book became a perfect opportunity with questions at the end of each chapter to move through a chapter a month. And our group was typically about 8 to 12 people that continued through the year and really benefited from working the questions together.
Wow, sounds really interesting. And you mentioned that the Caravan Club was started by Daniel Goodenough, and I want to go straight to him. Now, Daniel, tell me, how did this all happen for you? And again, I want you to explain your experiences since you've written the book and all of the people that you've met and the stories that you have. So jump right in and tell us a little bit about Daniel Goodenough and the Caravan Conversation Club.
Well, in terms of myself, it's the, let's say, the next step in the journey of helping people in the world remember why they're here and what that calls them to do and who that calls them to become. Upon finishing the book, while I was writing it, I had this idea that I would hope that people around the world could work the process. So then as we were working the Caravan team to talk about how to move it out into the world, the idea was there to have Caravan Conversations Clubs where people could have somebody local sponsor the group and work the process. And people from the Way of the Heart team volunteered, being familiar with the work, and as Gretchen said, working the process. So that started to be local groups, and I always had this vision that if somebody read the book, let's say somebody has read the book in Morocco, this has happened, and she wanted to be part of a group, and there was somebody in the Caribbean who read the book, and she wanted to be part of the group. So then it was, how do we put the structure together so that people from different parts of the world can work together, working through the book in the way that people are working with Gretchen to work through the the book on a local basis in a more virtual Conversations Club way, then we now have the Caravan Conversations .community site where anyone anywhere in the world can get in touch and say, I want to be connected with other people working through the questions in the process.
Sandra, you joined as well, and Daniel had to have an effect on you because the book must be something that you've read and you've digested and you feel that it's the place to be, part of this club. And what have you learned from the club, Sandra? Tell our audience a little bit about what you've learned.
What I've learned, well, I've worked the process personally, and being in the club, what I've learned about watching others do it is they've been very touched by it. It's a way to ask the questions that they don't normally have the opportunity to ask.
Right. And now, give us a few of the questions that you've asked and that you've heard other people ask.
Yeah, well, they're the questions that are in the book. That we call them the scales. So every chapter has a series of questions. And it's these they're really quite profound questions that help us to go deeper into who we are and why we're here. And I've learned that...
Who are you, Sandra? And why are you here? Yeah, who are you?
Who am I?
Yes, I mean, you're exploring all of that in the club, and so I have a suspicion that you've really thought about it, and you want to know, at least I want to know, and my audience I'm sure wants to know, who's Sandra Zwirlein?
Well, I'm a longtime student of Daniel Goodenough and of the Way of the Heart, and there has been a great effect on my life. I was professionally working in the healthcare management field and realized in the 90s that if I continued, I would probably go down the road of not becoming very happy. Through great good fortune, had a friend that knew Daniel and introduced me, and through our working together, through both working with me with my inner life mission and my outer life mission, I find myself now truly becoming more and more aware of those two pieces. Who am I and what am I here to do? And so currently working as a strategic coach and a future coach, and much happier for it.
Yeah. Now, Daya, you too are part of the club, and you are a personal coach as well and a counselor. And Daniel has been part of your life for at least 4 years. You've embraced his life mission work wholeheartedly, and you've said that this work has supported me in bringing focus, awareness, intention, and love to my life in a way I never experienced before. Now, that seems to be clear, but I want you to explain it a little bit more when you say it's a coach, and what I do brings focus, awareness, intention. How does that happen?
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking that question, Susan, and for having us on your program. As I said, I came to this work 4 years ago, and the first large class that I did was actually a life mission class, and it was a week long. It was something I'd never really focused on in the way that Daniel does. And so that, I was looking at my intention, like what do I really long for in my life? What is the deepest longing of my heart? And I know I want things, but this really asked me to go much deeper in it. And then to have the scales, as Sandra was mentioning, and Gretchen as well, it started to unfold for me of these threads that went through my whole life, that really I was longing for this all my life. And so that really struck a chord for me, in the sense that what Daniel teaches is it's not about finding my life mission, it's about waking up to it. And that's what I love about the book. It's about David waking up to what his life mission is, what he came here, what he was sent here to do. And I don't think that's something that we are shown in the world very much. So, from that discovery in myself, I could bring it even to young students, young children. I teach quite a range of students, from all the way from third grade to high school, to seniors in high school. And I find myself entering into conversations with them, for what they can understand. Or, when I'm doing my acting, I'm bringing that sense of myself into it, and the same with coaching. So it's been very supportive for me, and we also, in our Conversations Club here in Vancouver, the people, we talk about things like that, and we look at the individual chapters and how that is moving us forward in that journey, in that exploration of, we're sharing it, as Daniel said, sharing our process and how our life mission, our awakening to it is unfolding. And not only that, but the other piece, Susan.
Go ahead, jump in.
Oh, I just wanted to say the other piece of that is not only are we awakening to what we were sent here to do, but how that is helping us become who we're meant to be to do that work. And I love that. That has really been exciting.
Now, our society today thinks about how much money they make. They want to have, their egos are just up to the sky because they feel that, oh my God, I'm making money. I'm focusing on this issue of money because that's what our society seems to be really interested in. How do we start a business, an entrepreneurial business, and how do we become a success? That is the word that people are always looking for, success and money. Now, Gretchen and Sandra and Daya and Daniel, what do you think about that, that we are just focused on making money?
I'll just say really quickly that, this is Daniel, that you can become very successful and then go, is that all there is? And I've had many clients that's happened with. So it's just a great idea along the way of becoming successful as an entrepreneur, whatever career that is, to take the time to examine, is this thing to what degree is this thing I'm pursuing speak to why I'm here? So that's what I would say about that quick.
Right. And how about anybody else? You want to jump right in and give your opinion about the whole notion that people, all they care about is money, M-O-N-E-Y.
Well, I think, Susan, that I know for myself, I count my successfulness in what I experience in the work that I'm doing. So, I have had money, and I have money. I earn a good living, but that's not what really makes me happy. That's not what makes me feel fulfilled. I mean, I need money. I have to pay the bills. I do these different things, but it's not the source. It's doing in the world what I know that I was called to do. And in the book, there's the first chapter is about hearing the call, and I think that's something that we need to talk more about in our lives, about what we're called to.
Yes, that sounds almost like a religious thing. Is it religious? Is it I hate to say this, but sometimes cults they also think about these things. And I know you're not a cult, but I'm just curious about how religion affects you in your life. Start off, Gretchen. Give us a sense of that.
Well, I think, how does religion affect me in my life? I think what Daniel's work and the Caravan, and even in my involvement with the Way of the Heart, has brought a real openness to spirituality and this sense of that we are here and we're called to do something specific, and then how do we then do that in connection with a higher power that can then support us in awakening to our life mission, and also feel that support in what we are offering to the world. I have found it to be grounded, and at the same time uplifting and inspiring to then open to new ways of allowing more of that support into my life, and feeling feeling a new strength, a new faith, to then move what it is that I love and find beautiful, and to offer that to the world. So for me, it's helped to deepen my own spiritual connection, my own spiritual unfolding, not having grown up within a particular, religious institution, for example.
I hear you. Yeah. Daya, explain to our audience about the Caravan Conversations Club that you started. Give us a sense of what people do when they walk through the door, and I assume that they have it in certain places in your area. So give us a sense of what it's like. A person walks in, and now tell us how it goes.
Well, usually, we gather together and we greet each other, and we do a bit of a check-in. How are people doing? And, then I will this month I actually sent an email out to all the people who have been coming on a regular basis of some of my experiences with reading the chapter we were going to focus on, and I've offered some suggestions as to, what we possibly could talk about. So we do that. We look at things that struck us. I like to say struck a chord in us, or something we might have a question about. And, what was our favorite part? We might talk about a quote. And those things kind of lead to other questions, how they do. And we often will go to the back of the book and look at some of the questions that are threaded through the chapter. And it goes like that, and people take turns and share, and it's quite rich, and we get new ideas from each other and new thoughts. So that's part of what it is.
Sandra, is it kind of like a meetup? I know our audience, a lot of them are involved in meetup.coms, and these become communities for these people. And people always tell me, and at least I even say, that I want to be part of a community, because seemingly at this point in time, people are so busy, they're going to their jobs, they're doing all these different things, and the community's just not there. So if I say to you, Sandra, how do you create a community, and is it something that people can depend on?
That's a great question, and that is something I've really witnessed our book club become, is a community. And the club members have mentioned that it feels that way to them and how grateful they are for it. And so when we began, that was one of the parameters, is that we respect each other, we are a community. We are there for each other. We listen to each other and for each other. And there's a real kind of intimacy that gets created, that we have become a strong community, I would say, yes. And I personally feel that is needed in the world. And so for me personally, I'm grateful to have it.
I hear it. Let's go back to you, Daniel, because, of course, this is your book. I want you to explain, if this is successful here in America, can it be successful all over the world, and is that your intention?
That is my intention, and I would imagine that there might be certain cultural eccentricities that would be particular to a culture. And in the book, when the caravan work is done in the Caravan of Remembering, people from all over the world are doing these exercises. So it's meant to be a universal thing, and it is actually a universal thing in the sense that every tradition of time has had some way of talking about each person here being here for a reason. In every nation of the world, in every tradition of the world, they already have this idea that if you look into the myth of their culture, and I don't mean myth as in true or false, myth as an operating system, the Mahayana or the Vedas, the Rig Vedas, or whatever the tradition is, the Torah, that idea that each of us are here for a reason is universal in the world. So I would imagine anyone in the world could do it, and it is my hope that everywhere in the world that we start to take that as a given, that everyone is here for a reason, and it would be great if we cultivated that. And anytime anyone doesn't live the reason they came, we all lose something for them not doing that.
So what has been some of the biggest insights for people, Daniel? Because, again, there are so many different things, I'm sure, that go on in each particular group. And as you said before, as some of the guests said before, it is a community. So I'd like to understand, and I'd like our audience to understand some of the biggest insights for them.
Well, maybe they could speak to what showed up in their groups. I've gotten letters from some of the people, emails actually, from some of the people in their groups saying how grateful they are. And let's say maybe one of the insights that's more an insight of gratitude is that it's not so much taken as a given in the world, that we all have a purpose, and doing the work is confirmed for them. Not only does everyone have a purpose, I've gotten in touch with what mine is in a way that I can articulate that to myself and other people. And then that becomes very unique in the sense of how do I step into that in a practical way in my life, and working through the process is meant to help that. So the biggest feedback I've gotten from people is that, yes, I see I have one. I'm really grateful to have that confirmed. I'm grateful that there's a process that makes that practical and grounded, and that, through sharing in the groups, I think it might have been Daya who said that there's insights that come from what somebody else in the group has shared that I might not have gotten to without hearing that from someone else. So that's kind of my feedback.
Oh, wow. So, Gretchen, Sandra, Daya, you must have a question for Daniel. You've been doing his thing, and you've been reading his book, and you've been starting all these different clubs, but I'm sure something has come up where you want to ask him. So step right in, and let's start with Gretchen. Is there something you would like to ask Daniel?
I think in terms of the clubs, the conversation clubs, I'd like to get more skillful at holding, the intention, Daniel's intention, his vision, within the club. So knowing more. I guess I'm hearing more of his vision. I know his vision, but I guess.
Well, tell us his vision. I mean, he's described some of it, but tell us a little bit about his vision.
Well, what's always touched me is when he, he shared in different classes that I've been part of, that his vision is that in any community, whatever size, small community to a large city, that there will be people there to, as people are wanting to awaken to what their life mission is, that there will be someone there who could support them in that awakening, in that journey, in that deepening of questioning and seeking. And through the book club, it's been an amazing, and beautiful and touching moments when you see people starting to look at their life, and Daniel's always inviting in the questions, how do you see the higher story of what has been your life so far, what have been your experiences, and to see people, realizing that it all matters, right? Everything that has been a part of their life, that there's clues within that, and it's all unfolding and moving towards something.
Sandra, do you have a question for Daniel at all?
Well, generally I'll go right to him for these questions. So on the spot, what I might ask is, people tend to have what I would call some hard and fast ideas about themselves, and beliefs that maybe aren't very life-empowering. And what are some masterful ways of moving someone, hearing them and moving them to maybe the higher story, the higher thread, and helping them to see the benefit of what they're speaking of as well?
Well, I would say that maybe one of the things that is embedded in the book is the idea that part of the process of the book is to look at the story of one's life. And it's okay to say it in the way that maybe you say, we've identified this is my story and this is who I am, and maybe that's not exactly lifting me up. And then to say, okay, what's a higher version of that? And then, that would be more empowered, kinder, richer, more generous. And then after telling that story, say, okay, let's do it again. And the invitation in the group is that at a certain point, people could join in that process and help someone actually look for insights that make the story, as Gretchen was pointing to, it all serves something. And it's really important that not telling someone what their life mission is, helping them get to it themselves. So if they're telling their story and say, what's the higher version of that? What's the higher version of that? and saying it over and over, and working with the group over time where they say, you've said X, Y, Z, and what about this? And that everyone helps everyone lift that story up so that eventually over the course of working through all the chapters, they arrive at a story for their life that is empowering and up-levels their life and gives them higher self-esteem about that story and feels like, oh, yeah, there was a reason for that, and here's what the reason is, and this is how it will serve in the future. So I guess it's that very process.
Daniel, what if I said the word inspired? I'm going to give you a few words. I want you to see how these work for you. For example, let's talk about the word inspire. Let's talk about the word ego. Let's talk about the word negativity or positivity. In fact, I just want to mention something that I think is very interesting, and that is I'm reading a book by this author Manson, and what he talks about in the book is that we always think that life is going to give us all kinds of positive things, and when it doesn't, we become extremely negative, and as a result, there is so much stress and so much anxiety. What do you think about the idea that don't think all the time about positivity because, you could be very disappointed?
Well, the purpose of the process I was just talking about is to say that it's not about is that positive or negative, is what does it serve, what is it developing in you. And if we say we came here, if the word vocation means calling, if there's a vocation that you were meant for, and say the outer life mission is what that calls you to do, but the inner life mission is who will you become by doing it. And if the purpose of the things we go through in life that might be called negative was to develop something in us so that we could serve in a certain way, then the question isn't was that good, was that bad, was that positive, was that negative? It might be more, if I know why I'm here, how does that fit in with why I'm here? What is that developing in me? How do I take this thing that I could call negative, and what's the higher story of that, so that I can, that it can inspire my life, as you said.
Yeah, inspire your life. Daya, you too have been following all of the things that Daniel has said, and now you're at a point where you've had the experience. So how do you describe yourself now? If I were to ask you, I'd say, Daya, what kind of person are you? Are you a person who thinks about the money? Are you a person who wants to have a success? Are you the person who wants to share things? And what about young people? Can they get a lot out of this as well?
Oh, absolutely. When you ask that question, it brings a smile to my face when you say, who are you? As I said earlier that when I first started to do the exploration, the inquiry that Daniel has brought into this book, this story, so that it's very alive and happening, is the thread, is that I'm different, but I'm not different. I mean, I'm who I've always been, because and I'm growing and evolving and deepening. I would say I'm deepening. So, through this work, I have been able to connect more and more with that longing that was always there in various forms of wanting to serve, wanting to be of service to other people and share, my passion and my, be inspiring, as you say. And so that's what this work is offering to me, is a vehicle, a way of doing that. And when Daniel was talking about and Gretchen and Sandra about the higher story, I remember in Caravan, there's a part where they're sharing their stories, and I forget which character is saying, one of the guides is saying, again. And I remember the first time I read it, I was saying, okay, I'm not quite sure about that. Well, now it's the third time I've read it, and I know, I understand what is being asked, and it's what Daniel was explaining, that the more we explore it, the more we peel away the layers and see what's there, what's truly there for who we are meant to be and what we're meant to do in our life in this world. Yeah. So that's,
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing that you just said, and I have another question for Daniel. And Daniel, is this program, can it have an impact on young people, on octogenarians, on virtually all kinds of people from different ethnicities? Can it have an impact on people with different cultures than we have here? And if it does, how does it affect them? Does it change the way that they think in their language? I'm going to use the word language because it's kind of like a different culture has a different language. So what do you think, Daniel? Is it something that everybody can really appreciate?
Yes, the answer is yes to all of those. The premise of the book actually is that people from all over the world come together and work on this question together in the Caravan of Remembering, and how that affects anyone anywhere doing the process, because it is self-inquiry. So it is about helping anyone, regardless of your culture, background, or age, identify for yourself, because it wouldn't really help for someone to tell someone else what their mission is or why they're here. So it's self-discovery. So depending on the culture you come from and depending your life experience, you will arrive at that. And then why they're called scales is it's meant to be a practice for life. So let's say you start this conversation at 12, or 13 or 16 or 19, I would say that would be really helpful before people decide on a college major. But then let's say now you're 30, that if you've been doing this process, as you evolve, your answers to those questions evolve with you, and what that does is it helps you stay present to the ways that your reason for being here dances with both the culture you're in and let's say the memes of our time, what happens in how jobs change, how cultures change, even what happens with financial institutions are constantly changing. So how to dance with that becomes something you become skillful at in terms of who you are and why you're here, so you can apply that to your life anywhere in the world, any culture, any age.
Can anybody start a club?
Just real quickly, there was a woman who came who was a dean of a nursing school, came in her 80s and started this conversation and found it very helpful for what she did in her 90s.
Isn't that great? Well, is there a way for anybody who wants to start a caravan club to do it? And if so, how do they start one?
Daya, do you want to take that?
Sure. Well, first of all, Daniel was talking about the Caravan of Remembering, the community conversations. We have it. It's www.caravanconversations.community. And on that site, they can register. I can send you the link if you'd like, Susan. I've got links to a number of things. But so they can go on that site and they can register, and it doesn't cost anything. And then they have access to chapter discussions and things like that. And there's a way to get involved. So where to purchase the book, and if you want to start your own club. And there's contact information, so they can do it that way through me and a couple of other people that are connected to that website that we manage it, and have built it and are always looking at better things, to improve it and whatnot to serve people. So that's definitely one way that they can do it.
Mm-hmm. What about?
And they can do it virtually as well, Susan. They don't have to do a live club. They can create a virtual club, like online, that people can do, like on a call like this, or through Zoom or Skype or any of those things. So they just have to contact us, me or any of the other people on the site, and we can talk about it.
And what is the website?
The website is I don't think they need the www, but it's www.caravanconversations.community, all lowercase.
And if people want to get the book, Daniel, how do they do that?
Well, they could get it on Amazon. They could buy it from they could go to the Way of the Heart, or they could go to the Way of the Heart site. They could also go to the Caravan of Remembering book site and order it from there. The e-versions are available on Nook and Kindle, Amazon Nook and Kobo and iTunes. So all the formats for ebooks are available, and they can order the book, the hard copy from Amazon or from the Caravan of Remembering book site.
Daniel knows this, I always like to ask my guests to have the last word, because I think there is something that I don't necessarily know that would be a benefit to this conversation. So jump right in, anybody who has the last word, and tell us a little bit about how important it is, whatever it is. Do I have a candidate? Why don't you start, Daya?
Well, I would have to say that that stepping into reading this book is a really great opportunity to open, as Daniel said, the conversation of your own exploration, self-exploration of, why we're here. People are asking that all the time. Why am I here? Things seem so bad and so purposeless and all of these things. And this book starts to deal with that issue of exploration, of why was I sent here and what am I meant to do? And I think that's very uplifting and nourishing for not only each individual, but for the world at large. And I think that's what we really need in this world, and we're moving towards that. And Caravan of Remembering, the book, is a really good starting point.
And Gretchen, you want to give us the last word as well?
Sure. I would say, the book is beautiful and lyrical, and there's so many metaphors and weaving and layers and levels to it, and it opens people to this remembering, and these conversations, they matter. And through having the book club and then witnessing people wanting to come back again this year to work through the book again, they've done it 1 year and now they want to continue, taking the questions to a whole other level. And then also having people share that they are now, feeling braver and more courageous to take those conversations out into their workplace, into their communities, and start asking some of these questions. Hey, have you thought about this? Because they'll bring that back into the club, and I find that inspiring, and how it can spread, and these conversations matter.
And what about you, Sandra? You want to finish up on what really matters?
My belief is, if we were engaging in this sort of self-inquiry, and going back to your question about money and the focus on money, that focus would disappear in the way that the focus on money is happening right now. I think we would be healthier inner versions and outer versions of ourselves by engaging in this kind of inquiry, and I believe that the ripple of that, it would change our communities, it would change our planet, because these are the real honest, sort of soul-searching questions that make us more human.
Yeah, more human. Mm-hmm. Daniel, more human. I think that's a magnificent term, more human. Are our folks here on our planet, are they human, or are they becoming subhuman because we have all these computers and messaging on the phones and doing this, and they don't look people in the face, and they don't talk to people, they don't call them up. Everything is just all about the computer. And I think that's a travesty, but I want to know what you thought.
Well, I would say that, yes, it makes it more human, because then you know what it's for. And not knowing what it's for, why am I doing this? What is it all for? Even just for yourself. I mean, knowing it for yourself does give you a hint of maybe the what it's all for collectively to some degree. And when you're disconnected from that, your why, then it can seem like just one big machine, and you're a cog in the wheel, and that can be disenchanting, uninspiring, can be depressing, all of that. And I guess my parting word is, and has been the kind of the motivation for my life, is to say there's help for anyone, anywhere, under any circumstances that has that, let's say, existential angst, not feeling human. And what's it all for? That if you want, starting with yourself, to identify with yourself, when you want to know what that is, there's help. And the Caravan Conversation site is set up for anyone, anywhere in the world, and at least in the ebook version, it's available anywhere in the world. So you could join people from anywhere in the world in that conversation. So just if that's a thing you've been asking, why am I here? There's help.
Yeah. Well, today my guests have been Gretchen Smith, Sandra Zwirlein, Daya Harris and Daniel Goodenough, the author of Caravan Conversation Club. And it was a pleasure to have you on the show, and I think each one of you has a lot to teach and a lot of people need to learn. So thank you again, and it's my pleasure, and I hope I could get you on the show again. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for having us.
This show is brought to you by the Spectrum Firm Incorporated, a helping hand on the FCC highway. The Spectrum Firm specializes in FCC licensing, related engineering, and project management support in the private wireless industry. We offer FCC licensing, engineering support, and related services, including annual programs for license maintenance and renewal services, spectrum analysis, strategy, and frequency management. For more information, call 858-484-8502 at www.thespectrumfirm.com.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.